Greetings. My name is Dr. Henry Lee Norman Anderson. I'm telling you my full name because it becomes important. What you're about to see is an interview. Dr. Henry Anderson is going to interview Dr. Norm Lee. And we're going to talk about a subject that is important to all of us, that impacts our lives locally, nationally, internationally. And that topic is the violence within us. We see this violence in our sports. We see it in television. We see it in our theater. We see it all around us. And we see some ugly evidences of the cruelty and the utter violence of the human being. And we wonder, where does this violence come from? Hopefully, after this interview, you'll have a better idea. And you can look within yourself and identify symptoms that might remind you that perhaps you too can be a victim of the violence within us. When you invited me to appear on your show, I thought about it, and I decided I would do it because for a number of years I have been concerned about my own level of internal violence. We all are exposed to violence in our society, in our homes, at school, in the community. We see violence on
a father shoots
television.
and kills his young son, his mother-in-law, and then himself. Investigators say he also injured his wife.
In the movies, we read about violence in the newspapers. So there's violence everywhere. And I think that supping on all of these various forms of violence, not to mention spouse abuse, child abuse in the home, or just plain evil intent and evil behavior on the parts of fellow citizens. But we are fed all of this violence, and this feeding, I think, builds up in us. And as I learned to read, I read about slavery, I read about lynchings, I read about night raiders, I read in the newspaper about people being abused and burned, and a lot of those images started accumulating in my memory bank. We need to find a way to lessen. We need to find a methodology
that allows forgiveness to take place. We need to find a way to release this anger, this hatred, to let this monster out of ourselves. And I think it's very important, and I want to do that, and I think that's largely why I'm willing to expose myself to you, Dr. Anderson, and to your audience. And I'm okay with what people think about me for doing this, but I think my motivation is honorable because of the disrespect that I have experienced as a young man from uniformed police, and because of the stories I've heard and read about of other people who have been abused by those in authority. I believe at one time that I just hated all white people, despite the fact that I had friends that I called brother. I just felt that this feeling pushing from inside of me was beyond my control. I did not put it there. I did not develop it. It was developed for me by the abuse, the violent abuse, to deny me movement, to deny me the right to be an American, to deny me my space, to deny me my opportunity to pursue life, liberty, and happiness is an act of violence. To deny me a job that I'm qualified for is an act of violence. To turn me away from being able to feed my family is an act of violence. And this violence is sometimes very subtle, but it's nonetheless very painful. And in our society, for too long, the person with power over me, over my life, over my movement, has been represented by the uniformed police officer on the street who callously disregards my rights and violates my privacy by disrupting my movement for his own pleasure. That, in my judgment, is a contributory factor to the feeling, even of hatred, against all white people. It's not logical. It's very emotional, and it can be very traumatic. How did you overcome that deep-seated desire to kill all police? Or did you overcome it? I'm glad you asked me about my desire to blow up all the police in the world in my fantasy. If you will recall, I didn't make any distinctions as to the colors of the police because my focus is on the uniform. It was the uniform, the police uniform, the badge and the uniform that I was the victim of. I was victimized by as a child growing up. Well, because this feeling was so deep inside of me, wanting to kill all police, I was punished for that. I got married later in life, and I had 3 children. One of them was a boy. That boy went off to the university and majored in law and society. I thought he was going to become a lawyer. Well, that one son became a police officer. Now I love police. And this is how God saved me from this serious inner pain that I had, and this burning hatred for police officers. The love of my life now is a policeman.